safety, our sense of fear, everything like that is a discriminatory reflex, which is actually okay, and we shouldn't be looking to override these instincts and condition us to not listen to them. And that's what we're doing when we enable, like, when we normalize the bizarre. Honestly, when nothing is normal anymore, that's what we're doing. And it's really unfortunate, and that's why, like, it's not just like people say, like, I know, like, the message is repeal the GRA, for example, in the UK. It really needs to go further. I think it needs to be explicitly stated that, like, all this crap is, like, you tattoo your face, it's legal grounds for discrimination. The same thing for this gender crap, that you become a gender person, it's legally in the negative, right? It's legally okay to discriminate against you. That's what I would do, honestly. Um, and yeah, like, what is wrong is wrongful discrimination. But as a society, we also have to, I think, articulate clearly, like, what forms of discrimination is correct and actually rightful. I mean, I think, like, it's kind of self-evident. Like, I think it should be okay to fire someone if they start with the gender identity crap. Like, it should have no protection whatsoever. It should be anti-protected in that sense. Yeah.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, on one hand, with my tattooed, what's it, MS-16? Uh,
MS-13, yeah.
MS-13
Yeah.
person, a part of my brain says, God bless you. You're out of the gang. You're not murdering people anymore. You're working with food. You're helping people who are ill. That's all commendable. But on the other hand, I'm like, really? Do I need to interface with a killer or a person who's advertising that? Um, do I have to? I mean, what's my responsibility here? I am not. I am definitely not against people trying to better their lives, but I don't need to participate in that. And so let's switch it up. That this man who's dressed in high-heeled shoes and a short skirt and a medical jacket and wearing full face makeup like a drag queen is somehow not gonna harm me, that my best interests are gonna be at their heart. How am I supposed to trust that the hospital did that, or they didn't just try to satisfy some sort of diversity numbers in hiring this gender bending individual? I don't know. All I know is I don't feel good. Don't get in my space. I really just leave my tray outside in the hall, and someone who's not scary can come in. You made all these choices about your costume,
Exactly.
but that's not part of my situation. I came here for medical, not to play a part in your pageant. The school I'm at now is a Roman Catholic school also, and they're welcoming everybody. And do I want to say, you're not welcome? I don't know that I want to say that either. But why do I have to bathe in your proclivities? I don't want to.
When we look at the Geneva Convention, I mean, even prisoners of war get sex segregated spaces. The only reason why this has all been mucked up is because they've changed the definition of woman. And that's the difficulty here.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Changed
completely
the
agree. Like,
definition of
now,
female and they've
yeah,
changed the definition of woman. And so therefore, all those rules that we've had for centuries that we put in place for good reason now seem to be, gone, because we've changed the definition of women and male, to be fair, um, changed the definition of female. They were very clever when they said, oh, we're going to make gender identity female and male, is the very first two of the gender identities. They were very clever when they did that. And the reason why they did it was so that they could blur the line.
this really stems from people wanting to change sex at its heart. And when, like, sort of people caught on to the fact that, like, no, that's really not possible, they had to sort of manufacture, this idea of gender identity and whatnot, to, like, so as to explain, what they were actually doing.
That's like the chicken
Yeah,
and the egg argument, though.
yeah,
I think, I think I think the plan came first because that was in the 70s. I mean, come on,
No,
you
but I'm
know.
saying like even back in the 30s, like when it started, like they wanted to change the sex of people, and like gender identity idea wasn't the thing yet. They just, these are people who wanted to change sex. It's like they were,
Absolutely, but
yeah,
when you look at what happened in the late 60s and 70s, and the way in which they decided that this was the way they were going to go, then the language kind of
yeah,
kicked in. Then the the likes of the Denton's document, even though that was much later, it, it happened before that. If you look at the guys in the 70s who were, identifying as women, they planned it. These were guys who were very
yeah.
successful businessmen, who decided that this is where we were going to go, and they wanted something for themselves. They wanted to make sure that they were able to live without anybody noticing that they were men, because they had their own issues with their own sex.
At what point does this become okay? It doesn't become like the whole thing is completely insane. Our sex is the most fundamental aspect about ourselves.
They believe that they're la 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 la. And if they have this surgery, it will be better. It'll actually.
Yeah, and it's the medicalization of aberrant behavior, and it's not a medical question; it's a moral question. Yeah,
And
it's
having these drag shows in the preschool and the really little kids drag reading and all this kind of stuff, that is so confusing to me why people are participating. I mean, I almost feel like someone explain it to me like I'm a kindergartner. What's the thought process of the mother and the father that bring their child to these
yeah.
events?
I
I
have no
can't
idea.
fathom it.
Either they just like the only thing that to me would make sense is that it's a sort of coping mechanism for them because like they're having their own doubts and they just have to go all in. So they're just like being more being pulled by strings. They're just having their thoughts dictated to them because even they don't get it. So they're just making themselves deliberately along for the ride. But other than that, yeah, I have no idea.
So I did take my young children, but we're talking 20 plus years ago, to the gay pride event near our house that was in a giant park. The sleaze factor was very low, and it was in one corner of the park that you just didn't go to. The rest of it was little booths with different things. You'd have purveyors of different foods or clothing or crafts or earrings or God knows what. And they were just gay owned businesses. And then some of them were, HIV and AIDS were a really big deal. So some of the booths were very health oriented, lots of information, maybe sponsored by clinics or medical organizations. And there were food trucks and balloons and yeah, rainbows, but it wasn't the insane sleaze fest that it is now. There was no men walking around in the chaps with the chains and the dog stuff and the whatever nipple clips for my kids to see. I would not take them to that. So I do understand that I would take my kid to this. Also, the other thing is it was about 6 blocks away from my house. Everyone is parking on my street to go to this thing, and we're like, okay, there's a band playing, well, let's just go. But I somehow feel like that's different than going to the library to watch a drag performer spread their legs while reading kids' books. I don't get that. I feel like there's a difference.
Well, yeah, there is obviously. I mean, like what you're describing is people outside, like the norm, let's say, but yet integrating into, like living like according to the norms of society. Whereas this is just in flagrant violation, like the drag library thing.